Hello and welcome back to the Dugout podcast. This is episode number 45. Um, we're back after a little hiatus and we did miss some big talking points, so we'll be going through that just with uni and other commitments that kind of got in the way. And I'll be honest myself, I kind of let it slip by the wayside a little bit. So yeah, but we've got the boys here. We've got Laurie and Ethan, the full lineup here in the dugout, to talk about everything that's happening. We've got quite a lot to talk about. Laurie, how are you feeling after that safety clinching victory at the weekend?
Yeah, it was a little bit more nerve-wracking in the end than we thought it was going to be. But I mean, it was a brilliant day at the football, and I'm sure you've had this experience as well. It's so much better when it's lovely weather as well. I mean, it's a brilliant Saturday for football that was, and so glad that we secured Premiership survival, albeit for Kelly, it's kind of been overshadowed by other news we'll get into later on in the show.
Yeah, definitely. And Ethan, it's kind of been, standard. Celtic are the champions now, which is news we did miss. So I guess you're just enjoying watching your team play and enjoying being champions.
Yeah, yeah. As Laurie said, Scotland's there's nothing better than Scotland when it's sunny, especially when you get to the latter stages of the season, and you've got the big sort of post-split fixtures. In terms of sort of a title race, we've not had as maybe as good a one as we would have liked, but there's still been other entertainment, especially for the last European spot. There's still a fight, and then the relegation scrap at the bottom. So yeah, it's been good. I'm glad to be back. How's yourself?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. It's my door creaking open with a wind. But yeah, yeah, I'm good. I've really been enjoying the weather. I've been going out and trying to do a lot of walking, although I've destroyed my feet a little bit from doing it, but it's been good. And yeah, I've enjoyed just watching like football matches in general recently. I was watching the playoffs, English and Scottish. Loved watching the European football. Watched the second half of El Clasico when I got back from work the other day. So yeah, it's I've just been enjoying the weather and enjoying watching football recently. Although on on Sunday I was doing a long shift and I took my lunch at 12 to watch the first half of the Rangers game, and watch the worst half possible, I think. But anyway, we'll just go over the headlines quickly. So Glasgow Celtic claim their 55th league title, bringing them level with Rangers for league titles and taking them up to 120 trophies in the club's history. A massive achievement, four in a row now for Celtic, and yeah, well deserved after their tremendous season. Falkirk just got over the line after it looked like they might, bottle it in the end, but they managed to get the win, and they beat Hamilton Accies 3-1 at the Falkirk Stadium to claim promotion to the Scottish Premierships. I always like it when there's a club who comes up who we haven't maybe seen in a while. It just adds something different to the division and the playoffs. Rage on. We have Ayr United going out to Partick Thistle. Uh, Laurie's buzzing from that. Boing boing, as the Partick Thistle fans will be saying.
Aye,
Um,
and the Kelly media team for that matter. They actually tweeted
Yeah,
that
I seen
before
that.
the
I
final.
seen that.
yeah.
Before the final whistle, may I add?
And we've got the playoff final tonight. The first leg.
Semi-final, semi-final.
Then yeah, well, kind of the final. You know
Final
what?
between the championship teams anyway, but yeah,
Aye,
semi.
Well, Laurie,
Need
stop.
to play
Stop that.
25 games as a championship team to get promoted through the playoffs. Near enough.
I know it's mental, but yeah, between Livingston and Partick Thistle, and yeah, that should be good. And yeah, SPFL action happening. Still a big scrap in the relegation spots. Still a fight for European football for many teams. There's still a lot to play for. So we're going to do it a bit differently today. I think we'll go from top to bottom. And just discuss kind of what's been happening for the teams and talk about the games if there's not a lot to talk about. It was actually Ethan's idea because we've kind of missed a couple of weeks, so this will give us a good understanding of where the teams are at. So first of all, Celtic, a 3-1 win. Only the Scottish Cup left for them to secure a treble, perhaps, in their 121st trophy. But if you're a Celtic fan for league football for now, you can just sit back and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Celtic in the split, post split, for the most part, have got back to their best. They obviously started it with the 5-0 win against Dundee United to clinch the title, which sort of started Celtic's sort of decent run in the split and started Dundee United's terrible run in the split. Of course, they're yet to pick up a point. Then they obviously got that 1-1 draw at Ibrox, which I could kind of see coming. I thought Celtic wouldn't lose again, but I also thought that with the problems Rangers have caused Celtic this season, I thought Rangers might be able to get at least some sort of a positive result. And then, as you said, Celtic won 3-1 at the weekend. Maybe the scoreline doesn't sort of say that it was a really sort of good Celtic performance, but it was. It's caused Celtic a lot of problems, especially with sort of David Gray's Barcelona-esque high line that Hibs employed, which caught Celtic offside quite a lot. It was a really successful Easter Road in that game, if you remember, when Hibs won. Celtic were caught offside a lot, and they were for bits of the first half. Celtic finally managed to get onside and scored, and then they kind of navigated past Hibs from there. But Hibs caused some problems.
Really good chances. He got a goal, but he could have had a hat trick.
Yeah.
He had these shooting boots on. A nice save from Schmeichel for the first one, but he has to be scoring from there. And then the one where he cuts inside and he slips. So he did score, but I'm sure Martin Boyle won't be happy with himself from that perspective.
Yeah, I've spoke about him on the pod as well, Martin Boyle. I know he probably should have scored more than what the one goal he did, the opener at the weekend. But I think he's a player that's went under the radar in many aspects this season. Been probably the best player, if not one of the best players on the third best team in the league this season. It looks like they're going to finish, and he's sort of career highs in goals and assists in the Premiership. So yeah, for him not to be in the sort of player of the season conversation and the team of the season conversation, he'll maybe feel a wee bit hard done by. But Hibs under David Gray have just been a really sort of story of a team success, and I think they will have enough to get third now. I don't see Aberdeen picking up 4 points from the last two games, which is probably what they're going to need by the difference in goal difference. But a good win for Celtic, as you said. It's mainly just the Scottish Cup final now, and the Celtic players will just be competing for places to start in that match. The only other sort of stories I could say coming out of Celtic at the moment would be the debut for the young 17-year-old. I'll have to get up his name. Let me see it. Sean McArdle, midfielder who came on for the last 5 minutes, 17-year-old. So it's nice to see one of the big teams giving the young players a chance, because I know especially at Celtic it doesn't happen very often. So that was a nice moment. Hopefully we see him around more often in the end of the season and into next season. The only other thing that Celtic will want, apart from the Scottish Cup, is James Forrest to get his goal this season. He's still not got it. 3 games left. I think it was extended to 16 seasons. I think it would be.
Yeah, 16. He's got to take the next penalty, doesn't he?
Yeah, if Celtic get a penalty, I think he's on it. I think even if it was second half, Brendan Rodgers might sub him on, unless it's obviously the Scottish Cup final and it's a must score penalty then. But I think if it's in the last two games, I think James Forrest will probably start tomorrow night against Aberdeen. But I think Brendan Rodgers will revert to the sort of team that's got the job done in the league for the trophy day. I think that's the fair way to go about it. And then obviously he'll play his strongest team in the Scottish Cup final. But yeah, that's it. Celtic have just been sort of ploughing along. Still couldn't beat Rangers, which is starting to become a little bit frustrating for fans. But I'm sure if they win the treble, then it won't mean all too much in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, same kind of thing that's been happening at Celtic. Really, no massive talking points.
Yeah. You mentioned the team there, so we'll move on to the second place, Rangers. Not really much to talk about for them in a footballing perspective. They did get the 4-0 win at the weekend, some nice goals in there. One from Hamza Agaman. Like I said, one of the worst first halves of football I think I've ever seen. And I really regretted taking my lunch at that time. But Rangers did get the win. Barry Ferguson's first home win at Ibrox, ending I think it was a 7-game run without a win at Ibrox, which is the longest in the club's history, which is kind of mental to think about it. But yeah, Rangers did get over the line. It sort of took control in that second half. But I'd say the main news coming out of Rangers right now is the possible managerial appointment of Davide Ancelotti, son of Carlo Ancelotti. And apparently he's bringing one of the Real Madrid coaches with him to be his assistant. Boys, I'll come to you. I'll come to you first, Laurie. You've not really said a lot. What do
Yeah.
you think of this? This is kind of mad, isn't it?
Yeah, this is kind of, well, for me, as someone who's openly not a Rangers fan, it's actually quite exciting. However, I don't know how maybe, Rangers fans or Scottish football fans think of it because obviously there's a lot of skepticism around foreign managers, even if they are a big name. Of course, when you probably a kind of fair comparison is actually when my team Kilmarnock appointed Angelo Alessio, who was, of course,
That's
Antonio.
not a fair comparison at all. Just because he's Italian,
Aye,
this is the son of
Ita
Carlo Ancelotti, mate.
aye,
Come on.
Italian. They're not quite the same quality wise, God, but Italian and Antonio Conte is number two. He was, although he hasn't been since for what that's worth. But I personally think that away from that, it could be an interesting appointment because as much as he is Carlo's son, he's clearly got a really good background. He's been assistant at some very good clubs, and I'm almost something's telling me maybe from Football Manager that he's got like a fitness coaching background as well. Which, to be fair, with all the kind of injury issues and stuff, maybe he could be a solid, addition, to Rangers in that sense. But obviously, there is skepticism around foreign managers at times, rightly or wrongly. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously Rangers have had a few, like the Van Bronckhorst, the ex-player, Philippe Clement, in recent times. But of course, Pedro Caixinha is the one that the naysayers would come back to.
I don't have skepticism over the fact that he's a foreign manager. I'd say my skepticism comes from the fact that I believe it can go one of two ways. He's had a good career as an assistant. He's studied. You could see he's studied under one of the greatest managers of all time, and his dad. Has he learned a lot, or is he just a nepo baby? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, it's a good point. Like that's what you need to be really, mindful of, definitely.
Is
And
it, is it
good up.
because the last name's Ancelotti that he's got?
Yeah, because it certainly brings you kudos, doesn't it? To say that Ancelotti, you're well, even if you're related to Ancelotti, that kind of gives you a bit of something,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
yeah.
Yeah,
That's the only kind of concern I'd have. But um, if I'm trying to do mental gymnastics, Carlo Ancelotti doesn't strike me as the type of guy to just give his son the job for the sake of it. So
yeah.
hopefully
Yeah.
he gave him the job because he knew what he was doing and he thought he could work well with him and he knew he would, you know, propel his team forward. So yeah, and it's so out of the blue, isn't it, Ethan? Nobody would have thought this would be the manager Rangers would be linked with, and the rumours are turning into reports, and the reports are getting stronger with every passing hour.
Yeah, and the sort of exciting thing is, though, there is definitely sort of cons that could be brought up about this, but there's definitely pros as well. Whereas the other sort of rumored managers, you're getting your Sean Dice, your Russell Martin, and even your Marco Rosa. You know what you're going to kind of get with those managers. We don't really have a clue what we're going to get with Davide or Davide or whatever, however his first name is said. I'm sure we'll find out. Ancelotti. We don't know what he's going to get because he's never been a first team manager. But I mean, there is always one point where the sort of assistants are going to break away from being that assistant and take the step up. The sort of strange thing is here that he's moving from the biggest club in the world with some of the best players in the world to a club that demands sort of similar expectations domestically. But in terms of the sort of ability of the players, it's a complete difference. And that'll be, I think, one of the other interesting things to see with if he can sort of cope with.
Mbappe has Cyril Desser's posters on his wall, mate. Chill out.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of difference we're talking about here. Whether he can sort of cope with coaching and managing players that are, well, certainly not that there's the same quality as Real Madrid. But I think it's definitely an interesting one. You have a higher ceiling, I would say, than with any other manager you can get because you don't know what this guy's going to be like. He might turn out to be like his dad, dare I say, but he could also be terrible. So yeah, as you said, we
He could
really
be
don't know how it's.
Ferguson's son.
What is it?
He'd be Sir Alex Ferguson's son.
Yeah, it could be. You
Aye,
really don't know what you're getting.
I don't know, a job at Peterborough for life.
Yeah,
But yeah, so basically he could be second coming of Carlo, or he could be second coming of, I don't know, Paul Le Guen. It's probably a fairer, Rangers comparison.
yeah. But no, I think it'll be really interesting. I
He's
mean, that's how you can get big success, though. You talk about Celtic with Ange Postecoglou. Everyone was kind of like, well, why are they going for this guy? What's he done? And obviously, you know what happened there. And it could be the same for Rangers. But one thing certainly is a season like Real Madrid have had will not be accepted for Rangers this season because Real Madrid have been second best, well, pretty much everywhere domestically as well as Europe. So he'll have to change his ways this season.
parallel seasons.
But yeah,
Fairly,
you could say
fairly
Yeah,
so.
good
Yeah,
point. Yeah.
between Rangers and Real Madrid.
you definitely could say
Both
so. Although,
They both
I
went out
mean,
in the quarterfinals of a European competition. To the bookies' favourites, they both they both have not managed to win any trophies domestically. Although I'd say Rangers have done better in the one games, the derbies, but
yeah, that'd be the difference probably.
it's
Both opposition that are going to win each league's got a Ballon d'Or candidate playing on the wing.
oh,
Not quite, not quite.
oh jeez.
Um,
Right. But yeah, that's an interesting story about Rangers. Right, moving on to Hibs. We'll do Hibs and Aberdeen kind of as a package because they're both vying for that third position. Hibs have a much better goal difference. So Ethan, I think you alluded to the fact earlier that Aberdeen would need to pick up at least 4 points, and Hibs would need to lose both their games in the remainder of the season. I'm just looking at the fixtures here. So Hibs go to St Mirren Park on tomorrow on Wednesday, and Aberdeen obviously host Celtic, and then Hibs host Rangers on Saturday, and Aberdeen go to Tannadice. So looking at that, I'd say Aberdeen would be likely to get 3 points uh, from Dundee United. However, I can't see them beating Celtic. St Mirren and Hibs, that I think that could be an interesting game. St Mirren have been
Yeah,
excellent
it's a
this,
massive game.
Huge, yeah.
and then and Hibs could probably take something off the Rangers or beat them on the last day. They've shown them a few times this season that they can. A lot of teams have, but I think Hibs are one of the ones that stand out to me as one of the teams that can cause Rangers major problems this season. So I'd say the odds are in Hibs' favour to get that third place position.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah.
definitely. Oh, sorry, Laurie. I was just going to say, yeah, I definitely agree. I can't see Aberdeen picking up 4 points. They may beat Dundee United because Dundee United have been on a terrible run of form, but I just don't see Aberdeen having enough to get anything against Celtic. And that's saying that even if they do get 4 points, then that's saying that Hibs aren't going to pick up any, which um, against St Mirren and Rangers, with the way Hibs have been playing, I know they've lost two of the last three. They obviously had the unbeaten run in the Premiership ended by their former player Kevin Nisbet with that wonderful goal for Aberdeen. Then they bounced back with a win. Then obviously they lost at Celtic Park, but yeah, I still think Hibs will have enough for third, and I think they'll be deserving of it because I think they've been the best team outside Celtic and Rangers. Certainly recently, anyway. I know they started the season very poorly, but David Gray's turned it around, and I think since we last recorded, he's been. That's when he signed the new contract. I know it was quite a while ago now, but I think that's well merited, considering the job he's done.
Yes, absolutely, Ethan. I think David Gray, obviously, we've given him plenty of credit on this podcast, and rightly so, plenty of criticism at the start of the season as well. But just the way he's turned it around is quite remarkable. So hats off to David Gray and Hibs there because that wasn't easy because especially as a young up and coming manager. So I just hope that he gets back in the summer and Hibs can push on. It's going to be quite interesting to see how that plays out, especially with what's going on in the other side of Edinburgh. And those last two games, St Mirren and Rangers will be very interesting indeed because the Paisley Buddies will also have eyes on Europe as well, I would think.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think that's the big game. If Hibs get a result there, third secured almost. If St Mirren get a win there, then they put real pressure on Dundee United to get something out of their last two games. I think the Hearts fans have sort of been trying to link Stephen Naismith to David Gray in the sense that two young managers who've started well, got handed big contracts, and then obviously we know what happened with Naismith. So I think that's what the
I
Hearts
think
fans
there's
are
something.
hoping for, but I can't really see that happening for David Gray.
This Hibs team are different. I think they play really nice football. They score a lot of goals.
Yeah.
There's I don't know how to explain it, but when you like watch a team and you can just tell there's a you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
You
think
can
I
just
think
so.
I
tell
get it,
there's a
Alex. Yeah.
I
and
think I agree. Yeah,
yeah, no, I knew, and I'm just agreeing with your point that I think the Hearts fans they're clutching at straws a little bit there.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah, just quickly, Dundee United and St Mirren, we've kind of discussed it. Dundee United have been in extremely poor form. The game at the weekend, St Mirren dominated them and came away with a well-deserved 2-0 win at Tannadice. And yes, St Mirren in a good position to perhaps get a European spot because Aberdeen play Celtic and then oh gosh, I've lost my train of thought. Dundee United are playing Rangers,
Yeah.
um, I think on Wednesday, and then St Mirren could take something off of Hibs because I feel like St Mirren are are a team right now that you wouldn't count out against anyone to at least get a point.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
no,
St
no,
Mirren have
not at all.
got. So, sorry, I was just going to say, I think St Mirren have got the joint most points in the split, along with Celtic possibly. Um, so, I mean, that shows that the comeback they've made. They were obviously 9 points behind Dundee United when the split started, and I certainly didn't believe that they could claw it back. I had a weird feeling that Dundee United might struggle in the split. I don't know why I had that feeling. But they obviously have. But I didn't expect St Mirren to claw the gap back to the point where it's only 2 points, and St Mirren have got a very realistic chance of taking that last European spot off them. But Dundee United, if they were to drop out, I think it'd be devastating. I know, obviously, it'd still be a great season to be promoted, and with the finances and the squad they've got, to get top six would still be a remarkable achievement. But considering they've sat in those European places pretty much the whole duration of the season, to drop out right at the end, it would be sort of a really sort of disappointing time, and they may throw shade at the fans may throw shade at Jim Goodwin, but I don't think that's fair. Because I think what he's done, he's still done a remarkable job this season to get them that high in the Premiership. But the form's been terrible, and they'll want to just pick up any point they can in the last two games to remain in fifth. But for St Mirren, I mean, they're probably one of the most feel good factors in the league at the moment. Top six again, could be going for Europe again under Stephen Robinson. He's not been
Get,
linked. Well,
get a few happy United at the moment.
yeah,
A few
definitely.
happy United.
Yeah,
And he's probably, well, the St Mirren fans will be delighted that he's not the one that's been drafted for the Hearts job as well, because there was those certain rumours there. They've also made £200,000 for a player that was going to leave for free in a few weeks, a few months. So yeah, everything's going well for St Mirren at the moment, and I have a weird feeling that they might just do it. And I mean, I think St Mirren will do really well to hold on to Stephen Robinson beyond the summer. To be honest, I think he's a manager.
Well,
No
they've kind
difference.
of scared him a little bit with that contract extension. So
Yeah,
whoever wants to need to pay.
need to pay
yeah.
up.
That,
You know,
that's that's the thing. Yeah,
they've set
you're right.
right. So that is it. That's kind of the top six roundup. Now we can move on to the bottom half. Moving on to the bottom six, we have Hearts taking on. They took on Motherwell at the weekend. They are obviously seventh in the table. They secured a 3-0 victory over Motherwell, and Hearts just kind of after they've not got much to play for, but they're looking to finish the season strong under Neil Critchley.
Well,
Um,
not under Neil
I
Critchley.
just want. Oh yeah, sorry, because he got sacked. Uh,
Well, who they could
uh,
who they could be under is another question that we'll get to in a bit, I think.
yeah, yeah. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. But yeah, just I mentioned it to the young Hearts supporter that passed away, Charlie Kelly. And it was a nice moment. Lauren Shanklin scoring during the minutes applause. You know, and from what I've seen online and on the highlights, Motherwell fans and players were respectful of it as well. So, um, our condolences go out to the family if they actually see this, which I doubt they will. But just thought we should mention that about Hearts. They were good in the game. I think they were clearly the better side. Lawrence Shankland showing a bit of his old ability. I thought with the goals that he scored, he looked he looked like Lawrence Shankland again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I think
think.
he's just someone
On you go,
that's
Laurie.
playing. On you go, and we'll see what you think, Ethan. I think
No,
he's
no, you
someone
go,
who's
Laurie.
I think he's someone who's playing for a contract, whether it be at Heart or someone else. He's one of these guys who's realised, look, I've had a pretty poor season here, but I don't want to be at Hearts come the end of the season. So let's let's actually play for my future here. And we've seen the kind of old Lawrence Shankland come back, albeit in fairness, Hearts interim manager Liam Fox had actually played him at centre forward. Funny what happens when you play someone in the right position.
Yeah, I think this. I talk about new manager bounce. You know, it's one of my favourite phrases on here. I think this is a we didn't like the last manager bounce. Was what we're seeing from Hearts here. They obviously lost at home to Dundee, which was the nail in the coffin, which I thought was quite harsh to sack Neil Critchley. I think he was in his time. I think I seen the statistically the fourth best manager in the league or something like that. Um, so yeah, but you can see they fall into the bottom six. They lose the first game to a struggling Dundee at home. You can see where the kind of frustration from the fans came from. Obviously, he lost his job, and then in the next two games, since Fox has come in as interim, they've won both games. Shankland's been in his best form all season, which of course wouldn't be difficult. But back-to-back doubles for him. Alan Forrest also getting the other goal in both of those games. Um, and yeah, Hearts are well finishing the season strongly, but it's all become rather meaningless now because they're in the bottom six. But they are safe because there was a little bit of slight worry at a point from fans that maybe they would go into this sort of relegation conversation, especially against after that loss against Dundee. But yeah, Hearts two good wins, especially at the weekend against a decent Motherwell team. Um, and I think the big talking point now is, yeah, one of them is Shankland, where he's going to end up next season. I actually have a different opinion to Laurie. I think he will actually stay at Hearts. I don't know why. I just feel like if, well, who we think the new manager is going to be, I think he will work well with Shankland. I think he'll be able to convince Lawrence Shankland to stay at Hearts. So I think that's where Lawrence Shankland will be. I think his opportunity to leave was last season. He obviously didn't, and I think he'll stay even after the sort of controversy around his sort of snigger at the Player of the Year awards, following the questions about the manager, which is I think is always a very strange atmosphere when they do an awards night for a team who's had a pretty poor season. But yeah, I think Derek McInnes is the big talking point surrounding Hearts now.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, that's pretty much all I've heard about for the best part of the last week or so. That Derek McInnes is very much odds-on favourite to be the
Dive
Hearts
into
manager.
this. Sorry, sorry. See, just before we dive into this, anyone get anything to say about Motherwell, or just that they're fine, and we can move on
No,
talk
there
about
isn't. To be
Kelly and
fair, there isn't much to talk about for Motherwell. Not really much. They got that result at the start of the split, which kind of meant they were. I think some people were saying Andy Halliday was saying, "Oh, we're not safe yet," but I think everyone was kind of looking at it, going, "Oh,
Yeah,
Motherwell are safe." We'll just have to see what Michael Farmer does in the summer, get the chance to bring in his own players and see how they bounce back next season. But yeah, no real massive talking points on the Motherwell end, no.
yeah.
yeah.
All right.
Obviously,
So
like you
Kelly got
say, sorry,
sorry, Laurie.
just quickly before I go into Kelly, like you said, Ethan, I'm quite excited as to what Michael Wimmer might bring in the summer, and obviously, who knows where the future of Lennon Miller will lie. Obviously, one of the young player of the year kind of candidates, and so he should be. Yeah, but moving on to the mighty Ayrshire Kelly.
Yeah, Kelly secure safety with a 3-2 win over Dundee. A really good performance, a bit nervy towards the end. I think they took their foot off the gas after they scored that third goal in the 91st minute. It was a really good performance from Kelly. But Laurie, we'll just come to you and let you talk your talk. So you can talk about the game, and then we'll talk about the elephant in the room that Ethan already mentioned, Derek McInnes.
Yeah, so we'll go with the game first. I mean, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I mean, it was well, we know Beautiful Sunday is a song, but I mean, indeed, a beautiful Saturday in Ayrshire as Kelly secures survival in the sun. I mean, Kelly and Dundee is always a bit of a thrilling battle. Kelly coming out 3-2 winners this time around. I mean, 3-2 doesn't tell the full story of the game. Kelly were relatively comfortable throughout most of the game, and I think it was the 91st minute, the start of stoppage time. Kelly got a third goal through Robbie Dees, who has just signed a new contract with Kelly yesterday, as we record this, until 2027. So we fought 3-1, nice and comfortable, but then Dundee scored a second right at the death to get the nerves jangling, albeit it wouldn't really have got the nerves jangling too much because we would have still been safe with a point. But, brilliant result. Safety secures for another year, which I always thought we were going to do, despite the kind of up and down nature of this season. I mean, the last few weeks, Kelly have been significantly better. Yeah, we all know what I was thinking after Kelly got gubbed by St Mirren, which I know the likes of Ryan Niven and Kyle Gunn will want to rip into me for. But probably ever since then, we have kind of steadied the ship a little bit and kind of got back on the horse. However, someone might be jumping ship rather soon. A lot of debate around Derek McInnes and his future. He is seen as the kind of number one candidate for the Hearts job. And on Monday, yesterday, as we record this, there was an approach to Kilmarnock from Hearts for Derek McInnes. And the chat is that Kelly won't stand in the manager's way. However, what makes this interesting, and lads, I would love your opinion on this. Derek McInnes was one of the pundits on Sky Sports for Rangers against Aberdeen. But before the game, when Sky had a little bit of airtime to fill, Ailey Barber proceeds to ask Derek about, well, what was speculation at the time. I wouldn't quite say he denies it, does he?
No, he definitely doesn't. And I think a lot of the Kilmarnock fans have been very unhappy with how he's went about it. And it's definitely fair to say. I mean, I think some of
The
Chris,
Kilmarnock fans are never happy.
I think some of I think some of Chris Boyd's comments annoyed him as well around the
Yes.
Derek Dennis deserves a chance at a big club again or something like that around those lines. He said.
Yep.
And I think this is a move. You'll be able to tell me more, Laurie, but I think this is a move. If it happens at the end of the season, it's a move that maybe suits all parties. Kilmarnock fans, I think a lot of them have grown quite frustrated at McInnes this season, and I think Hearts are getting a good manager who's shown that um, he can work at the sort of the expectations that Hearts will expect. If you're looking at similar
Mhm.
expectations to maybe an Aberdeen. So yeah, I think it would be a good move for all parties. I think the talk of him moving before the end of the season's nonsense. I don't think that'll happen. I think there's always a right way to go about things, and moving before the end of the season when both teams have got not really anything to play for would just be disrespectful to Kilmarnock. And you could understand the fans were frustrated at that. But yeah, Kelly really good in the split. You could say maybe they played the sort of three worst teams in the league, but you've still got to sort of go there and win. And they have done 3 wins on the bounce. And I think Laurie, you could probably know this, but I think it's the first time Kelly have won three competitive matches in a row since 2022 in the championship. Um,
Yeah. And it's the first time I've done it in the Premiership since early 2020 under Alex Dyer.
well, there you go. I know you would know those stats, so that's why I was double checking with you. But no, a good finish to a good end to the season for Kelly, because there was sort of doubts on their Premiership survival, but along with the two teams we mentioned previously, they're safe. And we'll leave it to the
Laurie,
bottom.
Laurie, have you ever considered going against Roger Hannah and beat the pundit? Because
Uh,
I genuinely think you'd give him a run for his money.
I
You
haven't
just
actually. However,
absolute.
I was a few years ago mentioned on Super Scoreboard once, and you can actually find this on my socials. It was one of the like first half teaser things. It was about the Scotland national team, and you were to name a few players, and I forgot the most obvious player. I knew straight away I replied to my own tweet. Gordon Duncan saw this and he said, get those two tweets into one tweet and you've won. But I decided not to win the thing and I thought, I'm just going to leave this and have a laugh. And then obviously, well, in more recent times, not that I spoke to him, but I ended up in the same hotel as I think it was Gordon Duncan, Gordon Dalziel, and Mark Wilson when I was in Germany for the Euros. But you think I should have a go at Beat Pundit?
Did you see Gordon Dale getting cream put on his foot by one of the producers by any chance?
No, I did not.
Uh,
What a guy. But yeah, major win for Kelly. But yeah, McInnes, I'd agree with what Ethan said. That I think it's a move that makes sense and
Yeah,
probably is best for all parties involved. Hearts get a top manager. McInnes seems to have run his race at Kilmarnock. Maybe they need a bit of freshness in
yeah.
and around the rugby park dugout going into the following season. Because I can't see to be honest. I can't if McInnes stays. I can't see them improving much. I don't think they would get
No.
relegated, but I can't. You know what I'm trying? They would just be in
Yeah,
limbo.
yeah.
So I think
You've
it is
said
a move.
you've both said it. It's gonna run its course. Maybe. I mean, if he stays, right? I'm not like raging if he does somehow turn down Hearts, right? But it's one of these ones of like we all wanted them gone a few weeks ago, so we can't really have too much revisionism now, in my kind of view. However, the thing
yeah,
is, obviously with Kelly, there's a whole debate around who replaced him. Of course, Stephen Naismith's an obvious name to come up. Stuart Kettlewell will probably be considered. You've got Chris Burke managing the under 18s. I think they're a little bit early for that. But then again, Kelly did win the Scottish Youth Cup, so you don't know how much credit in the bank he has. The thing with Derek McInnes is, for Kelly, it's a total rebuild, probably coaching wise, because the likes of Paul Sheeran will definitely leave. You've got Alan Archibald and the coaching staff who may well walk out with Dale. We've got Fraser Stewart coaching the keepers. He's obviously the brother of former Rangers goalie coach Colin Stewart. And well, some of those guys will go. So this next manager will have to bring in his own guys as well. So it's not going to be, easy for Kelly to appoint a manager, but I hope we do it kind of quickly as well. Although I want to know what's going to happen on Sunday. So lads, what do you reckon? Who is going to be in the Hearts dugout on Sunday when Kelly and Hearts face off?
I still
Liam
think
Ford.
it'll be Liam Fox. Yeah,
I still think it'll be Liam Fox as well. But yeah.
I
yeah,
can't see McInnes jumping ship two games or
yeah.
one before the season ends.
It's just
No.
that would be ridiculous and the utmost disrespect to Kilmarnock.
Yes.
Where it's like, why would you even do that? I'm sure that although he's had some abuse, maybe not as much deserved from the fans, the Kilmarnock fans this season, he'll still have that respect for the club that he's not going to do that. He's had some successful times and some brilliant moments at Kilmarnock, so I'm sure he'll want to keep in the fans' good light and the club's sort of good side. The question I was going to pose to you, Laurie, was: would you? And I don't think this will happen. I think, but would you take Tony Docherty as the next Kilmarnock manager?
I'm actually quite torn on that, Ethan, because I felt like, say like last season when Kelly was doing really well, I was kind of the school of thought of if McKenna's was to be poached by someone like a Hearts, that side of the club, would you just go for Tony Docherty, who's basically another McInnes? But I don't think it would be received all too well now. Um, Maybe as well because Dundee have froze a bit this year. But one thing I will say is I actually think, as much as I'm saying about how similar Docherty and McInnes are, and they are by nature, one thing I will give Tony Dock is his teams seem a little bit more entertaining than your typical McInnes fare. I'll give it that.
Yeah, I think another thing is that I don't know if maybe Kilmarnock have the sort of players available that maybe suit how Docherty sort of gung ho style maybe plays as well as his Dundee team does. I mean, I know Dundee haven't been great this season, but I still think they'll have enough just to survive. But I was just
Yeah,
proposing the question as that sort of interesting one.
Yeah,
yeah,
that is an
yeah,
interesting question. Um, but I don't know. I feel like as well though, if Tony Docherty came in, it would need to be a fairly big squad transformation because his
Yeah,
style of
yeah, that's
football,
what
I
I was
don't think
thinking.
yeah.
players there suit his style either. But anyway, speaking of Tony Docherty, Dundee lost, and well, we'll talk about the bottom three because this is getting exciting. St Johnstone beat Ross County, taking them within 3 points of them. St Johnstone have a better goal difference. Dundee are 5 points ahead of St Johnstone, 2 points ahead of Ross County, going into the final two games. And we all thought we've all went like back and forth on St Johnstone. We thought they were then buried, and they were like, "Oh, maybe they're not." And then we all went, "Yeah, they're gone," but they're still got some life left in them. And Hearts versus St Johnstone tomorrow night, but the big one is Dundee versus Ross County, and yeah, see, to be honest, I could see St Johnstone picking up a point maybe at Tynecastle.
I don't know. I don't know. I think Hearts are
Don't
just
know.
in that. I think Hearts are just too strong at the moment. I know they've been terrible this season, but I think they've just decided that they're going to start playing now that they obviously I think they were down in tools under Neil Critchley, and I think they'll maybe have too much for St Johnstone. But I hope St Johnstone prove them wrong and set up an ultimate finale possibly.
Yeah, that would be quite
Yeah,
something.
but
What I will say though, just quickly, and you guys take on this been interesting as well. At times, maybe not consistently, but I've actually quite liked Timo Valakari and the way he's went about it. I think even if Johnson go down, he'll be quite interesting in the championship, I think. Although what I will
Definitely.
say, having
yeah,
having
I
watched
like
St
him.
Johnson in the flesh, having watched St Johnson in the flesh last week, they were actually quite poor. You don't even watch St Johnson and you think they're a good footballing side, but things aren't really going their way. But the other week they're against Kilmarnock, they were pretty poor. But Alex, you were saying you quite like Valakari.
Yeah, I do like Valakari. I think he's a good manager. I think they're the style that he wants to impart on his team. Maybe this is a big call, but if they do go down, I think they absolutely uh, batter through the championship, depending on the state of their squad. Uh, I think, but if they keep a lot of the key players that they have, I think that if they do go down, they'll batter through the championship. But yeah, but if Dundee beat Ross County and Hearts beat St Johnstone, that sets up an absolute cracker on the final day. St Johnstone hosting Dundee and Ross County hosting Motherwell, and uh, it's so exciting. I didn't think it would come to this. I thought it would be pretty much St Johnstone and either Dundee or Ross County in the playoff, but any of them could finish bottom. I think Dundee are the least likely, um, but any of them could finish bottom, and any of them could
Yeah,
finish in that playoff position. And
Yeah,
it's just so interesting. And I've got a thing. I like to back the underdogs, so I really hope St Johnstone manage. Not that I've got any ill will against Ross County or Dundee, but a team that have looked like they've been gone all season, it would be some miracle if they managed to stay up.
yep, same here,
yeah,
Alex. I'm with you on that.
yeah, definitely. And the weird thing about St John's is it's not even as if they've strung a few results together to come back into the picture. They just won one game, and Ross County have been utterly terrible recently. So that would be the worrying thing for Ross County that they've
I was always right about Don County. I told you he was
uh,
a bad
he's
manager
going
for
back on
a
this
long
again.
time.
Going back,
I
Well,
knew
going
what was
back on
going
it
on.
again.
there's got to be some. I
Yep.
don't think there's any terrible teams or terrible managers in the league at the moment. That may be controversial, but I just think the leagues. I think it's just there's got to be some teams
Rangers.
that are down there. Well, Rangers, but Rangers haven't got an actual manager, have they? So neither have Hearts. But I just
Well,
think,
you
Just
only have
now.
Harry. He was lovely.
What is it?
You lay off Barry, he's a lovely guy.
Aye, I'm sure he
You can't
is.
deny.
Um,
What do you mean you're sure he is?
yeah, but I don't know. No, he seems like a nice guy. Anyway, I was saying, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I was saying there's got to be some teams that are at the bottom of the league. I think like Tony Docherty and Vallecari certainly they seem like they're good. They're good managers for the league, if you know what I mean. Don Cowie maybe less so, but he's still he still could survive. And for Ross County, that's their goal at the start of the season. And it's still in their hands. I know they've lost the last 7 games in the league, which is a terrible run. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I can see St Johnstone getting a win on the last day against Dundee, and I think Dundee might have beat Ross County in the tomorrow night, and I think Dundee will already be safe. And then I think St Johnstone might drag Ross County into that relegation position. That's my prediction. So Dundee 10th,
Do you think?
Johnstone
Do you
11th.
just a question? Do you think Livingston or Partick beat whoever's in that 11th position, or do you think whoever's
Um,
11th will have enough now?
I think weirdly enough, I think if it's Dundee or St Johnstone, I think they have too much. If it's Ross County, I think Ross County will lose. I just think with the momentum the downwards momentum Ross County are carrying at the moment, unless they get a win in the last 2 games, I just think they'll just be at an all-time low
Ross,
and they'll not have enough.
Yeah,
Ross County have fought off playoff. I think the last 2 seasons.
yeah.
Yeah,
Indeed, they have. Yeah.
I always say it, that game against Partick Thistle was one of the best games I've ever watched. My family were over for Sunday dinner and and I got a shout, dinner's ready. I'm going, no, I'm watching this. This is tremendous. And but yeah, I'd love a repeat of that. And I've got a funny feeling that Partick Thistle might just do it. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Just like this is going to sound crazy, but they're giving me similar vibes to Inter Milan in the terms of they're not the best football team in that, but they might just like get through. You know what I'm trying to
Yeah, no,
say.
Yeah,
I definitely
they've
get what
got
you're
I've
the, like
saying.
they've got the kind of strength, they've got the bottle, they've got the kind of team spirit just to aye. The thing
They've got
is,
a kind
like
of
Park,
and I
feel-good
and I
factor as well.
yes,
yeah, and I think Inter Milan will actually win the Champions League, but yeah, it's Partick Thistle are giving me a similar feeling, like they'll just find a way to get through. I never thought I'd be comparing Inter Milan and Partick Thistle, Brian Graham and Simone Inzaghi, but uh,
oh,
but yeah,
it's mad,
uh,
isn't it?
Mark
Uh,
Wilson, Simone Inzaghi. But anyway, that's I think that's the best way I could have described it. But unless you guys want to add anything, I feel like we've had quite a good episode. We've went through the teams, and
I was
it's
just
been
thinking about
it's been a fun episode.
Yeah, I was just thinking about talking about the last wee bit on the sort of what you all thought of the player of the season and young player of the season and manager of the season awards um given out by the league or
You'll
the
need
PFA.
you'll need to refresh.
What is it?
You'll need to
Need to
refresh my
refresh
memory.
memory.
You need to refresh my memory.
All right. Well, I'll tell you the nominees. I've got them here. So for the player of the season, the nominees were Dyson Maeda, Cal McGregor, Simon Murray, and Nicholas Kuhn. So Dyson Maeda won it. I think deservingly so. I think Nicholas Kuhn's
Yeah,
Unanimous.
nomination a little bit of a strange one. I know he had a great first season, but I would maybe have someone else in there.
yeah, but I think
Yeah,
like the
maybe.
win that's fair, but
Raskin.
Yeah, could have
yeah, that's
Raskin,
a
yeah.
good shout.
And then
Yeah, he's sorry, but he's really developed, and he's so good, and we only paid 1.5 million for him. That's about the only good thing Rangers have done over the past 5 years or whatever. Uh, Yeah, sorry. Moving on.
No, I was just going to say, and then for the young player of the season, it was Lennon Miller, Arne Engels, Hamza Agaman, and James Wilson, and Lennon Miller won it. I don't have any disagreements for that either, to be honest.
Nah, I think fair enough. I think
Um,
you might, Alex.
Oh no, he's going to try and disagree.
well, he's. Let me just pull up the stats quickly, actually, because I can't remember them off the top of my head. But I think I don't know. I think the Moroccan kid should have maybe
No, no, I don't think
taken
so.
the credit.
I think it should be measured off. Both awards should be measured off your contribution to your team. And I think Lennon Miller's had the greatest contribution to Motherwell. I would even have Arne
Just because
Engels.
Motherwell.
Yeah, but Lennon
But
Miller's
but but that's part of that. He's been the
been
best
our
player,
best.
arguably.
He's been our best player. I know Andy Halliday won
12,
the Players Player of the Year, but
12
Lennon Miller.
12 Premiership, 12 Premiership goals, one assist in his first season in Scottish
Yeah, but
football.
he hasn't started a lot of games as well.
First in European football.
I
So
would.
that makes it.
Well, no, it means that he's not contributed as much to his team. So surely he's not the young player of the season. I would even have Arne Engels ahead of Hamza Agaman just of what they've contributed to the team and how many games they've started.
Have the £11 million flop
Yeah,
over Hamza. Right, moving on.
Um, and then the manager of the season. I'm not even going to bother. I'm not even going to bother. The manager of the season, won by John McGlynn, over the likes of Brendan Rodgers and David Gray. I mean, do we have any disagreements with that?
No, I wouldn't have until the the sort of last few weeks of the season. Um, I think Brendan Rodgers and you know he's probably the front. He's probably the one you'd go for, but you'd expect it from him, and it's not a like a ridiculously good season. I think Celtic, if they win both their games, they'll finish on 94 points. Which is still like pretty good, but it's not like when you're at Rangers and Celtic, if you want to sort of stand out, you need to move past
yeah.
what is expected of you. And Brendan Rodgers being really good, but he's done what's expected of him.
Yeah, I think
David Gray, I think for me that. Sorry, Ethan.
no, I was just going to say, I think Brendan Rodgers. I think in years to come, I think we'll see, and Brendan Rodgers' sort of tenure at Celtic will be more appreciated by the fans. I think he's a slight victim of his own success in a way because I don't think winning trebles has ever been normal. I don't think it should be made out to be normal, but I think you can't underestimate what John McGlynn's done. Back-to-back promotions is ridiculous. So yeah, I'm not really got a begrudge on it, but yeah, I just think Rodgers,
I was just
in
going to
any
say,
other season probably be deserving of winning it.
yeah, I was just going to say David Gray for me. The thing that takes him out of it was that first sort of half of the season that was
Yeah.
absolutely dire.
If
Yeah,
he started well, you could honestly make a case of kind of Gray against McGlynn, but I mean John McGlynn. Well, I mean we've got to remember Falkirk didn't actually lose a league game until I don't even know if would it have been this year or towards the end of last year. They went pretty much over a year undefeated in the league. I know doing back-to-back promotions and indeed back-to-back Manager of the Year awards. I think for McGlynn. So yeah, it was one of those where he almost had to win it on a technicality, even though Falkirk somehow almost bottled it.
yeah. Well, speaking of Falkirk, so do we think there will be another team from the Championship getting promoted then?
I think there might be.
Yeah,
So who we got? Have we got?
yeah,
I think I'm going with Partick Thistle as well. I don't know why. Livingston ended the season
yeah.
so well, but I think just that loss to Partick Thistle on the last day maybe knocked the stuffing out of them a little.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
going with Partick Thistle because I feel like they will, and I'm going with Partick Thistle because I don't want three bloody plastic pitches in the Scottish Premiership.
I,
We're
I was
not
about
we're
to
not
make,
an under 19 league.
I was about to make a similar point of I honestly think it'll be Partick Thistle, just from the kind of positive momentum they've got. And in my opinion, and sorry to maybe even the Partick Thistle women's team here, Brian Graham has to get that job permanently, whatever happens, in my opinion, right? But what I would say is I would love it if there was three plastic pitches in the league, even if it is only for 1 year, because well, yeah, just to wind you guys up,
Nah,
because
the thing
like
is though,
plastic, it's fantastic. There is
oh my
there
gosh,
is
but the thing
there,
is,
there are actually
Falkirk's
t-shirts
pitch.
that raise money for the Kelly Trust where you have that printed, like Barbie branding. Yeah, I've not got one, but they do exist.
I'm surprised you don't have something that's related to Kilmarnock. But anyway, Falkirk's pitch actually looks like a good quality pitch. Though I was there for the Challenge Cup final, and it does look like a nice pitch. Kelly's and Levy's look like my local park, so you know, I guess we'll see what happens. But anyway, this has been the Dugout, episode number 45. I really enjoyed this one today. Thank you to my co-hosts for making it such an enjoyable episode. Thank you to you for watching and listening. Make sure to like and subscribe. Go check out the Twitter at the Dugout 2024. Thank you and goodbye.